It's not the betrayal that guts you. It's the way they look at you after, like you never meant anything at all. The parking lot was packed. Rows of shiny SUVs and rental sedans lined the gravel shoulder like soldiers in formation. I smoothed my blazer, tugged once at the lapel. Navy blue, pressed sharp, my best. Era always said I looked like a senator in it. She would have ironed it one more time just in case. I clutched the ivory envelope in my left hand. Mr. Samuel Keller, gold embossed. The damn thing had cost $30 just to look at, and not a single fingerprint on it was mine. A kid in a headset stopped me at the chapel doors. "Hi, are you with the groom's party?" "I'm the groom's father," I said, trying to keep my voice level. He looked confused. "Do you have a seating assignment?" I handed him the invite. He frowned. "Sorry, this doesn't have a seat number, just says general guest. Let me check." He stepped away, whispering into his headset like I was a trespasser. I saw Taylor across the garden courtyard, white dress, veil lifted, smiling like someone who hadn't slept on a motel couch for 3 months when her first apartment flooded. She caught my eye, and just for a split second her smile widened into something wicked. Then she turned back to the photographer. "Sir," the kid was back. "I was told, respectfully, there isn't a seat available inside the ceremony for you. Standing room is full. Maybe check with the catering entrance." "No," I said, sharper than I meant. "My son invited me." The boy hesitated, then his headset crackled. He said, "It's not a good time, I'm really sorry." I looked toward Jard. My boy, my only child. He stood near the arbor, straightening his cuffs, laughing with her father like I was already dead. No eye contact, not even a glance. "I'll see myself out," I muttered. My shoes scraped the gravel as I walked back to the car. A couple in cocktail attire passed me, whispering. I imagined what they'd heard, probably something like estranged or complicated relationship or long story. No one ever hears the full story. They only ever hear the last sentence. The car door felt heavier than usual. I sat behind the wheel for 15 minutes before turning the key. I didn't cry. I just stared at the dash. 12:14 p.m. It was supposed to start at noon. Back home, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Still air, untouched furniture, the faint scent of lemon polish I hadn't used since Era died. The voicemail pinged at 1:06 p.m. Jard's voice. "Hey Dad, listen, I know that was awkward. It wasn't my call. Taylor thought it'd be best if you sat this one out. You know how these things get complicated. Look, we'll have dinner soon. I'll call you later. Thanks for everything, especially the trust fund. Love you." I replayed it once, twice, 3 times. Sat this one out. I opened the drawer next to the fireplace. Inside, birthday cards he'd drawn me as a kid, one dad in blocky crayon, a photo of me and him at his college graduation. I paid off every dollar of that tuition. And in the back, my safe key. Cold, metallic, final. The safe in the closet clicked open like a coffin lid. Inside, the trust documents, 82 pages of legal armor. I created it when Jard was 22. Structured, airtight. $3.5 million in long-term assets, growing interest. Accessible on his 35th birthday. He's 34 and 8 months. I stared at the signature, mine. The pen stroke a little shaky from that shoulder surgery, but clear. I signed that with pride. I signed it thinking I was protecting his future. I didn't see her then, not really. Taylor. Polished, polite plastic. She used to call me Dad. Once, she brought me soup when I had the flu, said she wanted to be the daughter I never had, said, "You're the only family I've ever trusted." Funny how trust always feels like a handshake right before the knife. I closed the safe and sat on the edge of my bed. My hands trembled, not from age, but from something deeper. Grief, rage, shame. I wish someone had told me stories like this sooner. Maybe I wouldn't have ignored the warning signs. Maybe I would have known what betrayal sounds like before it arrived in a voicemail. I looked out the window, dusk settling in, the world going quiet. If someone's listening, don't let silence swallow your story. I was never supposed to need revenge, until the people I loved taught me how to survive without love. Some betrayals don't echo when they land. They settle in your chest like ash, and no one hears the sound but you. 3 days passed, no call, no visit, not even a damn text. I sat in my kitchen staring at a half-used sugar packet, thinking maybe I'd pour it into something just to feel useful. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was punishing. The doorbell rang at noon. A courier in khakis handed me a thin cardboard box and nodded. "From the Andersons," he said. I didn't correct him. Inside was a black and white wedding photo, Taylor and jarred mid-laugh, champagne flutes raised, surrounded by people I didn't know. People who did have seats. It was framed in glossy silver. On the glass, a yellow post-it note stuck crooked in the top corner. "Thanks for the trust fund. Love you, Dad." The words hit like a brick. I sat down hard. My knees felt soft. That night, I drove to the VFW like I did every Thursday. A couple of the guys were already seated around the bar, swapping old stories with the comfort of men who'd survived worse than gossip. Greg waved me over. "You're late," he said, pushing a glass of club soda toward me. He knew I quit drinking after Era passed, said the grief didn't need gasoline. "Traffic," I lied. He studied me. "You look like hell, Sam." "Appreciate the compliment." "You hear from Jard?" I paused, fingers tapping the rim of the glass. "Yeah, got a thank you card." Greg snorted. "That bad, huh?" I nodded. He leaned closer, dropped his voice. "What they do?" I shook my head. "Not here, not now." Greg didn't press, but I saw the shift in his posture. The protective kind of stillness that only comes from men who have seen betrayal in foxholes and boardrooms. When I got home, I sat in the dark for 20 minutes before walking to the hallway closet. The safe was behind a row of coats no one had touched in years. I turned the dial slowly. 12 left, 3 right, 9 left. The click was louder than I remembered. Inside, the trust deed, documents from the brokerage, account balances, notarizations. I pulled out the binder labeled Jarred Trust, revocable until age 35. I stared at that word. Revocable. 5 months until it locked in. 5 months before he could touch a cent. I flipped to the amendment clause. My eyes scanned the text like they had 1,000 times before. Grantor may amend or revoke this trust in full or in part at any time prior to the beneficiary's 35th birthday. I whispered it under my breath like a prayer, like a challenge. At any time prior. My hand hovered over the page. I thought about the first time Jard broke something he couldn't fix. He was 12. Shattered my old Polaroid camera chasing his dog through the living room. He cried for hours, said, "I'll fix it, Dad. I'll fix it, I swear." I told him, "It's not the thing you broke that hurts, son. It's how quick you ran from it." He never did learn how to stay. I closed the binder and leaned back against the wall. My head throbbed. A memory surfaced, Era's voice during our last Christmas together. "Promise me, Sam, if they ever treat you like less, don't stay silent." I hadn't made a noise in 3 days. Maybe that was the real betrayal. I placed the trust binder back in the safe, but not before placing a post-it of my own on the cover. I wrote 2 words. "Not yet." As I closed the safe, the latch clicked like a punctuation mark. People think betrayal is loud, that it comes crashing through your life like a storm, but sometimes it arrives in packaging, and the silence after is where the real damage happens. I didn't tear the photo in half. I left it whole, so I'd always remember the shape of what they chose to become. When someone takes your voice, sometimes the first thing you need is someone who still hears you. Greg showed up Saturday morning, uninvited, just like always. 2 coffees in hand, both black, no sugar. He knew I hated how the store-bought stuff made everything taste like syrup and lies. "Figured you wouldn't be sleeping," he said, stepping into the kitchen like it was his. "I was reviewing paperwork," I mumbled, gesturing toward the dining table. It was covered in loose documents, copies of trust schedules, brokerage reports, old notarized forms. My old man handwriting littered the margins. Notes, questions, rage. Greg squinted at the mess and set down the coffees. "This about Jard?" I said nothing. He pulled out a chair. "You ever gonna tell me what happened?" I leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "They uninvited me, Greg, from the wedding. I showed up dressed on time, invitation in hand, and they had security tell me there was no seat for me." Greg didn't blink, didn't ask if I was sure, didn't say, "That doesn't sound like Jard." That's why I trusted him. "And now," he asked. I slid the framed wedding photo across the table. The post-it note still clung to the corner like it belonged there. Greg read it out loud. "Thanks for the trust fund. Love you, Dad." His jaw clenched, that little. "I created the trust when he was 22, structured it to release when he turned 35. It's revocable for now." Greg nodded slowly. "You want help amending that trust?" I looked at him, not like a friend, like a soldier standing next to you in the dirt asking if you wanted the next round loaded. "You know a lawyer I can trust?" "My daughter, Hannah," he said without hesitation. "Estate law, she eats revocable trusts for breakfast." "Would she be willing?" "For you, she'll wear her courtroom heels." For the first time in a week, I exhaled something that almost resembled hope. The next 3 days blurred together. I dug through every drawer, every filing cabinet, every creaking box in the attic. I found the original deed to the house, copies of Jard's tuition payments I'd made without interest, printouts of brokerage statements going back 10 years, a list of every trust amendment clause. Greg drove me to Hannah's office in the city. She wore a gray suit, no nonsense. Her eyes flicked fast over the pages, fingers moving with practiced ease. "You've done your homework," she said. "Most people don't even know what revocable means until it's too late." "Can it be done?" I asked. "You're the grantor. He's not 35 yet. You can name a new beneficiary anytime before the cutoff. And it's legal." She raised an eyebrow. "It's bulletproof, just needs a witness and a notary." I paused. What if I already have someone in mind? Her pen hovered. "Name. Ethan Carter." She smiled without asking why, just nodded and made a note. "It'll take a few days. I'll call when the draft's ready." As I left her office, Greg slapped my back gently. "Told you she was good." "She's a shark in heels," I muttered. "That's my girl." Back home that night, I went through an old shoebox of keepsakes I'd been too coward to open since era past. In the middle, tucked between photo negatives and concert stubs, was a folded card. Taylor's handwriting, flowing, feminine, too practiced. I opened it. "Happy birthday, Dad. You're the father I never had. Thank you for treating me like your own. I'll never forget it." I stared at the signature. "Love, Taylor." My hands shook, not from age, not from illness. From the memory of being lied to with affection. I folded the card once, then again, then tore it in two. There's no heartbreak like watching someone weaponize your love. No deeper betrayal than the one that arrives with a smile and a thank you note. The woman who once called me Dad had no idea I just started writing her out of the story. Revenge doesn't start with fire. It starts with ink, silence, and a name no one expects. Hannah's office smelled like cedar and confidence. The blinds were half drawn, casting slanted light across polished wood and law books I doubted anyone had opened since 1998. She stood when I entered, her handshake firm, gaze sharper than a scalpel. "Mr. Keller," she said, motioning me to sit. "Dad says you're ready to make things interesting." Greg leaned against the bookshelf, arms crossed like a proud lieutenant. I nodded once. "I'm not looking for drama, just clarity." She smirked. "Well, clarity comes with paperwork." She slid a thick folder in front of me. I reviewed the original trust. Clean language, well drafted. It's revocable until your son turns 35. Which gives me 5 months. 4 months and 19 days, technically, but yes, you're in full control. Her pen hovered. "So, who's the new beneficiary?" I didn't hesitate. "Ethan Carter." Hannah blinked. "Taylor's ex-husband." "Yes." A slow grin spread across her face. "I'd ask if you were sure, but that name tells me everything." "He came to me once," I said quietly. "After she drained his accounts and walked out, sat on my porch and cried. Said she left him with $63 and a note that read, 'You were always second best.'" Hannah whistled. "Savage." She stepped on him like he was sidewalk gum, and now she thinks she's royalty. Greg finally spoke. "Ethan's a good man, quiet, works hard, never said a bad word about her, even when he had every right to." "Exactly," I said. "He never got justice. Maybe this gives him a little." Hannah nodded. "All right then." She opened a new document and typed with rhythmic certainty. "Name, beneficiary ID, clause reference." The room filled with the soft staccato of legal vengeance being built line by line. After 10 minutes, she rotated the signature page toward me. "This is the amendment. It revokes Jared Keller as sole beneficiary and replaces him with Ethan Carter, effective immediately." I read it slowly. The words stared back at me like truth finally being written in public. "Need a moment?" she asked. I picked up the pen. "I've already lost more than time." I signed. She stamped the document, then scanned it into her system. "Filed by end of day. Original will be couriered to your home. One for Ethan, too." I set the pen down gently, like it was loaded. "Does this trigger any notifications?" I asked. "No automatic alerts. Jared won't know until he requests a copy or attempts to access the account." Greg gave a low chuckle. "And by then it'll be too late." I stood up. "Thank you, Hannah." "Don't thank me," she said. "Just promise me you'll be there when their faces melt." Greg clapped me on the shoulder. "Come on, lunch is on me." Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves scraped across the pavement like whispers. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. The victory wasn't in the signing. It was in the quiet waiting, the slow burn of knowing justice had begun, even if no one else knew it yet. I remembered Jared as a boy, coming home from school with a scraped knee and a crumpled math test. He'd cried in my lap, said he felt like a failure. And I told him, being a man isn't about getting everything right. It's about who you protect when no one else is watching. Somewhere along the way, he forgot that. But I hadn't. Some moves aren't made to win immediately. Some are made to remind your enemies that you're not asleep, you're just waiting for the right angle. I didn't raise my voice, didn't raise my hand. I just changed a name and everything began to shift. There's a silence only the betrayed recognize in each other. It's not grief. It's not rage. It's the sound of being discarded and still breathing. I hadn't seen Ethan Carter in almost 4 years. The last time, he was standing on my porch with red-rimmed eyes, a duffel bag at his feet, and a divorce decree fresh off a printer. He didn't ask for anything that night, just needed a place to sit where Taylor hadn't poisoned the walls. Now I stood outside his door, 3 knocks deep, wondering if he even remembered me. Small condo, chipping paint on the stairwell railings. Someone was cooking rice down the hall. I knocked again. The door opened just a crack. Ethan's eyes met mine, narrowed in confusion. "Mr. Keller," he said, voice low. "Hi, Ethan." He looked around like I was a scam artist with a clipboard. What are you doing here? I was in the neighborhood, needed a word. His gaze hardened. Now's not really a good time. Before I could reply, the door slammed shut. I didn't move. I sat on the steps like a stubborn ghost. 10 minutes passed, 15. I heard footsteps inside packing, then the door creaked open again. Are you seriously still out here? I nodded. I came to give you something. He sighed, running a hand through his grown-out hair. Fine, 5 minutes. Don't make me regret it. Inside, the place smelled like stale air and dollar store cleaner. A half-assembled IKEA shelf leaned against the wall. A takeout container sat on the table with 3 uneaten spring rolls. Ethan looked like he hadn't slept right in months. He gestured to a second chair. Sit if you want coffee. Sure. He poured from an old drip pot, 2 mismatched mugs, one chipped, the kind of kitchen that screams paycheck to paycheck. You didn't come here to reminisce, he said, sitting down. No, I said. I came to talk about Taylor. His shoulders tensed like a reflex. She takes something else. Not from me, not this time. I slid the manila envelope across the table. He hesitated before opening it. Inside, trust amendment papers, the new beneficiary designation, account valuation, and Hannah's contact card. His hand stopped moving halfway through page 2. He looked up. Is this real? Yes. This says I'm the sole beneficiary of a $3.5 million trust fund. Yes. He stared at me like I'd handed him a nuclear launch key. I don't understand. You don't have to, I said. Taylor tried to erase me from my own son's wedding, took the seat I built with sweat and silence and handed it to her father like I was a forgotten chore. That trust was meant to protect Jard's future, but Taylor turned it into currency for control. And you're giving it to me. I'm giving you what she tried to steal, what she believed she'd locked up. She never counted on me waking up. Ethan blinked hard, swallowed. You could have picked anyone. I picked the only person who knows what it's like to be gutted by her and still come back breathing. He sat back in the chair. His lip trembled. You don't know what she did after the divorce. Took my savings, tanked my credit, told my parents I hit her. I lost everything. Still haven't told my little sister why I missed her wedding. I couldn't afford the flight. I nodded. Now you can afford a jet. He laughed once, sharp and disbelieving, then silence. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Don't say anything, I said. Just don't waste it. He stood and extended his hand. We shook firm and quiet, 2 men scarred by the same fire. Forgiveness isn't always about letting someone off the hook. Sometimes it's about handing the hook to someone they thought they drowned. We didn't toast, didn't celebrate, didn't cry. We just sat there, 2 quiet survivors, letting justice finally fill the room where shame used to live. The hardest part isn't revenge. It's pretending not to want it when they offer you a smile and expect you to forget the knife. The phone rang on a Wednesday afternoon. I saw Jard's name flash across the screen like a name I hadn't earned the right to say anymore. I let it ring twice, then I picked up. Hey, Dad, he said, light casual as if I hadn't been erased from the most important day of his life. Got a sec? Sure, I said, flat, neutral. So, Taylor wanted me to call. She thought we should invite you to brunch for my birthday. I didn't answer right away. You know, he added, water under the bridge, right? Water under the bridge. I stared at the framed wedding photo on the mantel, the one with the post-it I'd peeled off but never thrown away. I kept it in a drawer next to the fireplace, just in case I ever needed to remember how small they made me feel. Sounds nice, I said finally. Tell Taylor thank you. I could hear the relief in his breath. Great. Sunday, 11 a.m. at the Briar. We reserved a private room. Of course you did. I'll be there. He paused. Really? Really? We hung up. I sat there for a moment, then reached for the notepad on the counter. I circled the date, March 10th, Jared's 35th birthday, the day the trust becomes irrevocable, and the day he learns it's no longer his. Later that night, Greg stopped by with 2 envelopes, one for me, one for Hannah. Final trust amendment ready for filing, he said, handing them over. Deadline. She needs it submitted no later than March 8th, end of business. You've got 2 days to make it official. I nodded. She'll have it by tomorrow. Greg poured us each a finger of scotch, even though I hadn't touched the stuff in years. Tonight felt like an exception. You okay? He asked, handing me the glass. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel triumphant by now. This isn't triumph, Sam. This is justice. He clinked his glass against mine. To quiet reckoning. To earn silence, I replied. I bought a gift. Something simple, ironic. A leather-bound journal with his initials engraved in silver leaf. Inside the cover, I wrote, "So you don't forget where things begin." Dad. I didn't wrap it. That evening, I pulled out the old photo albums. They were dusty, heavy, mostly untouched since era past. I flipped through pages of a chubby-cheeked Jared covered in cake frosting, dressed as a pirate for Halloween, grinning next to me on the 4th of July. His eyes always looked for mine in the frame. That's how I knew he once loved me, before Taylor told him love was something you weighed on a scale. By page 15, my chest ached like a rib had cracked. I closed the album. There's a grief that comes before the loss, when you realize someone you raised no longer sees you as sacred, just as something old, something used, a faucet they can turn off when company's over. I dialed Hannah. It's time, I said. Understood, she replied. Tell me again when it's submitted. It's done, no take-backs. He can cry, scream, sue, but the document holds. And he won't know. Not until he tries to access it. I hung up. There's no birthday card in the world that prepares a man for the day his future gets rewritten by the man he thought was finished. That night I lit a single candle for Jared, same as I did when he turned 5. Only this time I didn't make a wish, I just blew it out. You don't prepare for war with noise. You prepare in silence, with proof, with memory, with the fireproof things they think you forgot. The closet floor creaked beneath my knees. My back protested as I reached behind the winter coats and tugged at the false wall panel. Dust swirled in the narrow shaft of light from the hall. There it was, black, steel, heavy. The fireproof box. Era had insisted we buy it after a house fire took out the Hendersons, den and half their life insurance documents. Every family's got things worth saving, she'd said. I thought she meant birth certificates. Turns out she meant truth. The lock still turned like new. I opened it and let the cold metal remind me I wasn't crazy for holding onto all this. I just saw the storm before it landed. Inside, the voice recorder sat like a sleeping serpent. I picked it up and hit play. He's getting worse, doesn't remember anything anymore. Don't worry, babe. Once we get the money, we don't need him around. Taylor's voice, sweet as venom, clear as glass. I let it play again. There were 12 voice memos in total. Arguments I'd recorded when the fights were just starting, when Jared would talk over me, when Taylor's sighs carried more weight than my concerns. I remember one night clearly. Jared had accused me of hiding his mail. I'd said it was in the tray, like always. Taylor laughed from the other room and said, maybe Dad needs a memory pill to go with his bedtime cookies. I'd recorded that one too. I clicked through the digital archives I'd saved to a hidden USB, screenshots of text messages forwarded to me by mistake. One where Taylor wrote to a friend. Old man's loaded, trust funds airtight, we just gotta play nice for a few more months. Another where she joked, Think he'll even be invited to our first anniversary. Then there was the video file. An old iPhone recording jarred, accidentally airdropped to my laptop 2 years ago during Thanksgiving, a moment I was never supposed to see. They were in the kitchen, whispering, both laughing. "He still thinks this house is in his name," Jard had said. "He still thinks you care," Taylor replied. The laughter that followed stuck in my throat for months. I dragged all the files, memos, images, recordings, into a new folder on my computer, named it Evidence Legacy Theft. I zipped it, encrypted it, uploaded it to 2 secure drives, one on a password-protected cloud, one on a flash drive I kept in a book titled Code of Honor on my shelf. I wasn't going to wave this around like a flag, but if they ever came for me, legally, publicly, or otherwise, I'd be ready. Let them try. I sat on the edge of my bed with the box open beside me and the air thick with memory. I picked up a photo, Jard, age 7, holding a football twice the size of his chest. I'd coached every game that season. Taylor wasn't even in the picture back then. Another flash, her first dinner at our house. Era had made lemon chicken. Taylor said it was cute home cooking. I thought it was just nerves. No, it was foreshadowing. She'd always wanted the spotlight, the house, the money. The sun was just the bridge she used to cross. And I was the toll booth she didn't want to pay. I closed the box gently, but not like it was precious, like it was evidence in a trial that hadn't started yet. Because that's what this was now. Not a disagreement, not a misunderstanding. This was theft, inheritance, identity, bloodline. I'd already changed the trust. Now I was preparing the defense. They think silence is surrender, but silence is just what you use to load your ammunition before the verdict comes down. The war they started with a snub would end with a record, a signature, and the truth they thought would never speak. Some smiles cut deeper than knives. Some meals taste like betrayal, served warm and slow, with champagne on the side. The Briar was the kind of place where the napkins were folded like origami and the waiters whispered like surgeons. I arrived 10 minutes early, as always. It felt wrong to be on time for a meal I was only pretending to be invited to. The hostess looked me up and down. "Private party?" she asked. "Jard Keller," I said, straightening my tie. She led me to a corner room with frosted glass walls and dim lighting. Jard was already there, wearing a blazer too tight across the shoulders. He'd gained weight he couldn't afford. Taylor was beside him in soft beige, sipping something orange and expensive. "Dad," Jard called out as if nothing had happened. Taylor stood, arms wide like a game show host. "Look at you, handsome as ever." "Taylor," I said, nodding. "Jard." Jard grinned. "We're glad you came, really, it means a lot." "Of course." I took the seat opposite them. The place setting had my name on a gold card, handwritten like it mattered. The fork sparkled. The silence didn't. Taylor leaned in. "We were just saying it's so nice to put everything behind us, right?" "Jard." He nodded a little too eagerly. "Water under the bridge." I sipped water, didn't blink. She continued, "We know how much you've done for us, truly. The house, the help with the wedding, the trust fund." Her eyes sparkled like a chandelier. "We can't wait to build our dream home." My throat tightened. I forced a smile. "That's so." Jard chuckled. "Yeah, we're actually looking at plots in Edgewood next week. Taylor found this amazing property. Big backyard," she added. "We want a garden, maybe a pool." The waiter appeared. "Mimosas." I nodded. "3," Taylor said. "Extra citrus for Dad, he likes his sharp." I studied her. She didn't miss a beat. The drinks arrived. We toasted. Jard raised his glass first. "To 35, he said. "To new beginnings and a family that sticks together." I tapped my glass to his quietly. "To clarity." We drank. The rest was idle chatter, Taylor's new skincare routine, Jared's latest client at work, a gossip thread about someone from Taylor's gym being so toxic. They laughed. I listened. When the quiche arrived, I took a single bite. Then I stood. "Excuse me, restroom." "Of course," Taylor said, eyes scanning me like she was waiting for me to slip. I walked down the marble hall, found the door, locked it behind me. The mirror above the sink was too clean. It showed everything. My face, older than I remembered. The suit era had pressed last, still holding its shape. My shoulders straighter than I expected. I checked my watch. 11:42 a.m. Right on time. Somewhere across town, Hannah was submitting the final documents. The amendment to the trust. Ethan Carter, sole beneficiary. Effective immediately. No reversal, no loopholes. I stared at my reflection and whispered, "Happy birthday, son." There was no joy in it. Just a quiet mourning for the boy I raised. The boy who used to run to me when thunder scared him. The boy who cried when he broke my old watch and promised he'd never lie to me. That boy was gone. Replaced by a man who sold off trust for comfort. I washed my hands, dried them slowly, gave myself 30 seconds of silence before stepping back into the theater of brunch. They didn't notice the change, not at first. Taylor waved me back to the table like I was late to the act. "Everything all right?" Jared asked, tilting his head. "Perfect," I said. I sat down, took another sip of the mimosa. It tasted different now. Brighter, colder. You don't need a courtroom to deliver a verdict. Sometimes, all it takes is a bathroom mirror and a pen stroke they never see coming. They toasted their future, not knowing it had already been handed to someone they left behind. They always sound calm when they think they've won. It's the panic after that tells you the truth finally landed. The phone rang at 7:02 a.m. I was already awake, sipping my second cup of black coffee, seated by the window like I had been every morning since Era passed. The light hadn't even broken through the trees yet. The world was still gray and quiet, the perfect color for consequences. I stared at the screen, jarred. I let it buzz once more, then answered. "Dad," he said, breathless, "what the hell is going on?" I didn't speak. He kept going. "The bank just called. There's been some kind of change to the trust. They said I'm no longer listed as the beneficiary, that some guy named Ethan Carter is now the primary." I took a sip of coffee. "You might want to ask your wife why." Silence. Then I heard it, raised voices in the background. Her voice, shrill and unmistakable. "He can't do this. Call the lawyer, call the bank, call someone. He's just trying to scare us." Jared didn't respond. I waited. Then she shouted again, this time closer. "Put him on speaker." "No," Jared muttered. "You don't get to do this, old man." Taylor's voice blasted through the line anyway. "You think you're smart. You think this makes you powerful. You're just a bitter old man with nothing left but a grudge." I stared at the mug in my hand. A Father's Day gift from Jared when he was 8. "World's Best Dad" in faded blue letters. Funny how it never cracked even after being dropped more than once. "I hope you enjoy watching us fight this," she kept going. "Because we will. You're not going to win. You won't even matter when this is over." I didn't reply, just exhaled. "Are you even listening?" she screeched. "I've heard enough from both of you," I said and hung up. The second call came at 8:13 a.m. "Ethan." I braced myself. "Hey, Sam." His voice was tight, but there was a smile buried inside it. "She came by," I asked. "Just now. Walked right into the car rental office like she owned the damn place." "What'd she say?" "She screamed," he laughed. "Started with 'you stole my life,' then switched to 'you're pathetic,' then ended with something about how I'd always be a footnote." "She threatened you?" Only my patience, he said. Don't worry. The manager asked her to leave politely, with a call to security right behind it. I closed my eyes, letting the moment settle into me. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I didn't mean to dump her back into your life. He chuckled. You didn't. She walked into it all on her own. And this time, I've got the upper hand. The bank called to confirm the account access. It's real, Sam, the trust, the money, everything. I never gave it to hurt you, I said. I gave it to restore what she tried to break. He paused. I know, and I won't forget that. We sat in the silence of the line for a beat. No noise, no pretense. Just two men who had been broken by the same storm. But only one of us was still standing. Later, I watched the wind move through the backyard trees. The same trees Jard used to climb, back when he was small enough to believe I could catch him if he fell. He never asked me to catch him anymore. He only called when he needed the ground to stay still. When you take something back that was stolen from you, they'll call you cruel. They'll call you bitter. They'll call you everything but what you are, awake. She thought screaming would shake me, but all it did was confirm one thing. Justice had finally touched the right nerve. They never want to talk when they're winning. They only call for meetings when the walls start closing in. The message came through Jard's number, but I knew whose fingers typed it. We need to talk. You owe us that much. Tomorrow noon, neutral ground you pick. I picked the VFW Lodge, not because it was neutral, but because it was mine. Greg reserved the side room. No flags, no framed medals, just a long table and 4 chairs under the hum of flickering fluorescent lights. The room smelled like old coffee and truth. Nothing sweet could survive here. They arrived 5 minutes late. Taylor entered first, heels clicking like gunfire, sunglasses still on. Jard followed, shoulders hunched like a man walking into court, not a conversation. Greg stood behind me, arms crossed. He didn't say a word. Taylor ripped the glasses off. This is disgusting. I sat still. You humiliated us, she hissed. No, I said. You did that yourselves. I just removed the curtain. Jard cleared his throat. Dad, look, we need to understand what happened. Why would you do this to me? I opened the manila folder and slid it across the table. Taylor scoffed. What is this? A checklist of your resentment. Read it. She pulled out the first page. Hannah's amendment, notarized, dated, sealed. Her eyes scanned quickly, mouth twisting with each line. Effective immediately, the trust established in the name of Jard Keller shall be reassigned to Ethan Carter as sole beneficiary. This designation is irrevocable. She looked up, trembling. You gave it to him. Yes. You're sick. Jard leaned forward, voice cracking. Dad, Ethan, you gave my trust to Taylor's ex-husband. No, I said. I gave my trust to someone she couldn't corrupt. You raised me, he whispered. You said it was mine. I raised you, yes. But what I built wasn't for greed. It was for legacy. And you sold that the moment you stood by while she cut me out of your wedding like I was a stain on her guest list. Taylor shoved the letter aside. You're just bitter. You're trying to rewrite history because you're alone. No, I said. I'm alone because I respected the wrong people for too long. I handed her the next document, screenshots, her texts, the ones mocking me, laughing about the trust being locked in. Her friend's reply, just smile till the ink dries. She froze, color drained from her cheeks. Jard reached across the table and picked it up. He read, eyes widening, then narrowing. He looked at her. You said you never talked about it like this. She snapped. They're fake. He's trying to divide us. They're time-stamped, I interrupted. From your phone. Don't insult what little intelligence your husband has left. Jard stood abruptly. Did you mean this, all of it? Taylor didn't answer. Greg finally spoke, his voice low but solid. You disrespected the man who built your future. And now he's taken it back. That's not revenge. That's arithmetic. Taylor shoved her chair back. This isn't over. I met her eyes. It is for you. She stormed out, heels stomping like she still had the power to crush something. She didn't. Jard stayed behind. His hands trembled. He looked down at the table like maybe the numbers could be undone. She said it was secure. She said you wouldn't do it. She was wrong. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. I thought I was doing what she wanted, trying to keep the peace. I didn't know how far she went. No, I said. You just didn't care until the check bounced. He broke then. Right there in front of me, in the place I used to drink beer and tell stories about honor and sacrifice, my son folded like paper, face in his hands, shoulders shaking. I didn't reach for him. Greg didn't move. Sometimes the only mercy left is silence. There's a kind of justice that doesn't roar. It just lands quietly, like a verdict delivered by the father you thought forgot how to fight. The man who once called me Dad now sat weeping over what he thought was his future, watching it leave in the hands of someone who still remembered what dignity was worth. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it arrives in whispers, in the pause between phone rings, in the silence after their names are no longer praised. It started with a knock on the door. Mrs. Halstead from 2 doors down, holding a casserole she didn't even bother pretending was homemade. Tuna, maybe. Warm. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I heard, she said, shifting her weight from foot to foot. We didn't know, Sam, about what they did. I took the dish, said nothing. If you need anything, really, anything. She walked away before I could reply. The phone calls came next. First Greg, then someone from the lodge, then people I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, I saw something online, is it true? That Taylor. Did Jard really lose the trust? I said what I always say when people don't deserve the story. The facts are what they are. You can draw your own lines. By day 3, even the Fayetteville Observer reached out. A voicemail from someone named Eliza Dunst, staff writer. Mr. Keller, we're doing a piece on elder abuse and financial coercion. Your case has gotten quite a bit of traction on local feeds. Would you be open to a quote? I deleted it. Some stories don't need headlines. They need time. I walked to the grocery store that Thursday. Just needed eggs and coffee filters, but people stared. Whispers followed me down the frozen foods aisle. A little boy tugged his mother's sleeve and asked, "Is that the grandpa from the computer?" She hushed him. At the checkout, the cashier, Brett, who usually rang me up with headphones in, looked me square in the eye. "Good on you, Mr. Keller," he said, voice steady. "About time someone stood up to people like that." I nodded once. That was enough. Taylor's name stopped showing up in neighborhood invites. Book club, charity gala, even the 4th of July parade committee, radio silence. Someone told me her parents returned early from their cruise in Portugal. Didn't want to face the headlines back home, Greg said. Word travels faster than luggage. Jard disappeared from social media. All his grinning photos with Taylor, gone. Profile changed to private, comments disabled. Meanwhile, Ethan. He showed up in a Reddit thread titled, "Ex-husband gets $3.05 in plot twist of the year." Another post. This man waited years in silence and now owns the life they tried to steal. Real ones move quiet. A folk hero. The comments flooded in. We need a movie about this. My grandpa cried when I read him the story. God bless Mr. Keller, showing the world what real strength looks like. I received my first letter the following week, handwritten, careful cursive. A woman named Doris, 86 from Ohio. Thank you for standing up for us. For the widows, the veterans, the grandparents no one calls anymore. You reminded me that silence is not the same as weakness. There were more after that. Dozens. One from a retired school teacher in Kentucky. Another from a man in hospice who asked his daughter to read him my story twice. I didn't ask how it ended up online. Maybe Ethan told someone. Maybe Greg, doesn't matter. Sometimes stories find the people who need them most. The weight in my chest began to shift, not vanish, just redistribute. Like a coat you forget you're wearing, but at least now it keeps you warm. I didn't want revenge. I wanted someone to look at me and say, "You're not crazy for feeling what you felt." And now, from strangers across the country, I heard exactly that. I didn't need applause, I didn't need a parade. I just needed someone to believe me when I said this happened, and it mattered. Truth doesn't need fireworks to be heard. It just needs enough silence around it to echo. Some accounts don't just hold money. They hold memories, good, bad, and the ones you pray no one ever audits. The bank lobby smelled like polished tile and denial. The kind of place where the walls are too clean, like they're hiding something. I sat in the waiting area with the envelope on my lap, the final documents from the old trust account. Ethan walked in 5 minutes early, wore a collared shirt and combed his hair, like it was a job interview instead of a legal transfer of life-changing wealth. He saw me and smiled, not wide, not smug, just present. "Mr. Keller," he said with a nod. "Sam," I corrected. "Today of all days, just call me Sam." We shook hands firm, no posturing. The bank manager led us into the private office. Glass walls, a fake fern in the corner, two chairs that looked like they belonged in a dentist's waiting room. "I understand this is a formal beneficiary transfer," the manager said, skimming the paperwork. "Correct," I said. "We're closing the existing trust account and opening a new one under Ethan Carter's name. Funds will be transferred in full, effective immediately." She gave me that banker's smile, half empathy, half suspicion. "Of course, we'll begin the process now." She stepped out to prepare the internal authorization. Ethan sat down slowly, hands folded, nervous. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Are you?" He nodded. "I've run the numbers. I've got a plan. No jets, no Lamborghinis, just a cabin in Montana, a small real estate firm I can build from scratch, and a donation to the same vet clinic your wife used to volunteer at." I hadn't told him that part, about Era and the clinic. "How'd you know?" He shrugged. "She once gave me a ride when my car broke down, talked about it the whole way." I felt something tighten in my chest. "She said," Ethan continued, "Sam thinks I over-volunteer, but helping animals helps me miss people less." I looked down at the envelope, my handwriting on the seal, the weight of 35 years condensed into a transfer slip. "I won't waste this," Ethan said, voice quiet now. "Not a cent." "I believe you." By the time the signatures dried and the balances shifted, something unspoken had settled between us. Not friendship, not debt, just shared understanding of loss, of betrayal, of surviving things no one warned us about. We stepped outside. The air felt different, lighter somehow. Before we parted, Ethan turned and said, "You didn't just give me money. You gave me back my name." "No," I said, "you took it back. I just signed the witness line." When I got home, the phone buzzed. 3 missed texts from Jard. "Dad, please. Can we talk? It wasn't what you think." It was all Taylor. I was just trying to keep the peace. I stared at the screen. "Keep the peace." That's what they always say when they let someone else hold the gun. Another buzz. "Please, I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I forwarded the entire thread to Hannah. She responded 10 minutes later. "Understood. All communications will go through counsel moving forward." I turned the phone face down and poured myself a glass of water. Cold, still, final. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Some need to stay ashes, so you remember the fire. They always ask for peace after they've spent years setting the house on fire. But I've learned some silence isn't punishment, it's self-defense. The account is closed, the money is gone. But for the first time in a long time, what I have left is finally mine. Some people don't fall, they dig. And when the world finally stops clapping, all they're left with is the echo of their own applause. The envelope came certified, with Taylor's name on the return address and a law firm I'd never heard of. I didn't even open it, just handed it to Hannah. She called within an hour, voice steady, professional, but I could hear the laugh behind her breath. "She's suing you," Hannah said, "alleging emotional manipulation, elder coercion, and malicious estate sabotage." I blinked. That a real thing? "No," she said, "but let her try." Court was set 2 weeks out. Civil hearing, small courtroom, wooden benches, smelled like sweat and printer paper. Greg sat behind me like a boulder in a button-up. Ethan came too, silent, respectful. I didn't ask him to, but he showed anyway. Taylor arrived in a beige pantsuit 2 sizes too small, dragging a new attorney behind her like a handbag. Jard didn't come. Hannah stood like she was born in a courtroom, calm, composed, razor-sharp. "Your Honor," she began, "this is not about grief or confusion. This is about entitlement, about greed dressed in designer ambition." She pulled out the trust documents, legally amended, properly witnessed, notarized. Then the texts. "Your Honor, here are Exhibits A through F. Messages from Ms. Taylor, mocking my client, planning the financial gain from a trust she never earned." Taylor shifted in her chair, lips pressed so tight they disappeared. "And here," Hannah continued, "is a voice recording. Her words, 'Once we get the money, we don't need him around.'" The judge asked Taylor's lawyer if they had a rebuttal. He fumbled through a folder. "My client was emotionally misled. She was under the impression Mr. Keller intended the trust for his son and her as family." "And yet," Hannah interjected, "she explicitly refers to him as a useless old man in text Exhibit D. Would you like it read aloud?" The lawyer stuttered, "No, Your Honor." The judge looked at Taylor, then at me. "I've reviewed the documents, the amendments, the timestamps, and the communications. This is not elder abuse. This is a woman furious that her manipulation didn't work." He banged the gavel once. "Case dismissed. Ms. Taylor is ordered to pay court fees. In addition, due to submitted ethics concerns, a copy of this hearing transcript will be sent to the North Carolina Real Estate Board." Taylor stood, face crimson, mouth twisted. "This is a farce." The judge didn't even look at her. "One more outburst and I'll consider contempt." She stormed out again. Second time that month. A week later, Greg handed me a folded copy of the Fayetteville Business Register. Headline in bold: "Real estate agent under fire for ethics violation in family trust scandal." Her license was suspended pending investigation. Clients pulled listings. Her face vanished from the local ads. I heard from someone at the gym that she moved back in with her parents. Couldn't afford the Edgewood dream home anymore. Couldn't even sell a starter condo. Jard, someone spotted him at the Red Roof Inn by the interstate. Said he looked thin, worn, like a man freshly evicted from the fantasy he thought would last forever. I didn't feel triumphant, just still. Taylor tried to stay relevant. Posted TikToks from her bedroom, makeup flawless, tears painted on. Sometimes, the people closest to you betray you the hardest. Not all in-laws are family, some are snakes. No one watched. No one cared. The comments were brutal. "Didn't you steal from your father-in-law? Girl, it's over, go away." She turned off comments, then turned off the camera. Some people fall quietly, others scream the whole way down, but either way, gravity doesn't negotiate. They built their house on my silence, then acted surprised when the foundation gave out. Some ghosts don't haunt you with chains or shadows. They knock at your door wearing the face of the boy you once carried on your shoulders. I heard the knock just past 9. No call, no warning, just 3 sharp raps on wood that made my chest tighten before my feet even moved. I opened the door. Jarred. He looked like a man swallowed by his own past, sunken cheeks, stubble that didn't suit him, shirt wrinkled and untucked. His eyes were rimmed red, not from drinking, from regret, the kind that doesn't let you sleep. "You ruined me," he said, not a greeting, not a question, just a verdict. I studied him for a second, then stepped aside. "Come in, coffee." He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." The kettle whistled as we sat in the kitchen, the air between us heavier than any silence we'd ever shared. He didn't speak at first, just stared at his hands, fingers twitching, like he wanted to light a cigarette or punch something. "You could have talked to me," he finally muttered. "I tried," I said, pouring the coffee. "You handed me a Post-it instead." He winced. "That was Taylor." So was the wedding snub, the lies, the trust texts. His voice cracked. She pushed for all of it, said I had to choose between peace and drama. I didn't know what to do. "You chose silence," I said, sliding the mug in front of him. "And silence is a kind of answer." Jarred. He gripped the cup but didn't drink. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he whispered. "I thought maybe you'd be angry, sure, but this, the trust, Ethan." He shook his head like the name burned. I leaned back, watched him spiral. "You think I wanted this?" I asked quietly. "You think I wanted to sit alone on your wedding day while you toasted a future built on my back and her schemes?" His lip trembled. "She said you'd come around." "She said a lot of things," I said, "and you believed every one of them because it was easier than standing up." The words hung there. He didn't deny it. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a small envelope, white, sealed, his name in my handwriting. "I wrote this a week ago," I said. "Didn't know if I'd ever give it to you." He took it slowly, thumb resting on the flap, didn't open it. "What is it?" "Closure." He nodded, pocketed it. I didn't ask if he'd read it now or later. Maybe never. That part wasn't up to me anymore. We sat in silence for another few minutes. The coffee cooled, his breathing calmed. My heart didn't ache the same way. He finally stood. "I don't know where to go," he said. "That's not a question," I replied. He hesitated like he might say something more, but he didn't. He just nodded, turned, and walked out the door. I followed him to the porch, watched as he crossed the street, hands buried in his jacket, shoulders hunched against nothing but shame. The streetlights cast long shadows, but his looked small, shrunken. I didn't call after him. Didn't wave. Didn't cry. Just watched until the dark swallowed him whole. Inside, I sat back down, picked up his half-empty mug and dumped it into the sink. I felt something shift, something final. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Just stillness. Like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for months. Forgiveness isn't always a gift you give others. Sometimes, it's the permission to let go of what you'll never get back. He left with a letter. I stayed with my peace. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't crash through the door or make headlines. It whispers soft, steady, and earned. The house doesn't creak as much anymore. I oiled the hinges last week, patched up the screen door, and finally replaced the loose board on the porch step that used to trip me every other morning. The hydrangeas are blooming again, even though I was sure they'd given up 2 seasons ago. The tomatoes are coming in slow but stubborn, just like me. The backyard is quiet, save for the occasional rustle of squirrels chasing each other through the oak trees. No buzzing phone, no accusations, no strained apologies. Just birds, just wind, just breath. Ethan sends postcards every other week. Handwritten real stamps, No emojis or hashtags. Snowed in again, he wrote last. Cabins cold but peaceful, splitting logs, brewing coffee, feeling human for the first time in years. Thank you again, Sam, really. He enclosed a photo, him standing in front of a modest log cabin, dusted in fresh snow. A dog stood beside him, tongue out, like he belonged there more than any man ever had. I pinned the card to the fridge, right next to the old photo of Era, holding a tray of cinnamon rolls. She used to hum when she baked, off-key, always flat on the high notes, but it filled the house with something better than music, something warm. Greg dropped by yesterday, brought cigars. You ever going to smoke that thing? I asked as he unwrapped it. Nope, he said, grinning. Just like the smell, reminds me I've still got vices to resist. We sat on the porch, watching the sun crawl down the sky. I heard Taylor's working part-time at a call center, Greg said. Jard moved back in with his mother. Can't say I feel bad. I don't feel anything, I said, and that's the part I never thought I'd get to. He nodded. That's what peace is, Sam, not happiness, not fireworks, just not bleeding anymore. I reopened the scholarship last week, the Era Keller Nursing Fund. Had to dig through a dozen old files, but I found it. Wrote the check, endowed it for another 10 years. First recipient starts this fall, a girl from South Raleigh, raised by her grandmother, wants to work in hospice. Era would have loved her. I sent the girl a handwritten letter, just like Era used to do. Serve with kindness, I wrote, even when it's not returned, especially then. One morning, the wind carried the smell of rain before a single drop hit the ground. I sat with my coffee, porch blanket around my legs, and listened. Just listened. To birds, to the creak of trees swaying, to the old rhythm of a house, no longer haunted by voices that never apologized. There was a time I thought revenge would taste like fire, that it would light something in me that made the hurt disappear. But it didn't. It just cleared the debris, made room for something else to grow. Justice gave me space. Forgiveness gave me breath. Peace gave me back myself. I sat a little straighter that morning, no weight on my shoulders, no noise in my chest. Just the sound of the wind sliding through the chimes Era picked out at that church auction. They'd been silent for years. Today they sang. Peace has a sound. It's not loud. It's not proud. It's the absence of begging for love that should have come freely. This is my home. This is my legacy, and no one ever again will take it from me.